Hello everyone, it's TMG from TMG's Math Emporium, and today I am going to cover factoring. This was a request from Cameron, shout out to him, and today I'm going to go over some of the basics and do some examples. Now, I'm talking specifically about how we use factoring to solve algebraic equations. Now, if you remember my last episode on linear equations, it doesn't really it does involve some similar principles. However, you have much more work to do here. So let's start with a more basic example and move from there. Okay, so first example is for whatever reason my screen is white today. There we go. Okay, so z squared minus 100 equals 0. Once again, I'm getting these problems from the Algebra 1 workbook from the Dummy series. So shout out to them. Now, pause the video if you want to solve this by yourself. Okay? And to factor this, we can use the principle known as difference of squares. So a squared minus b squared equals quantity a plus b times quantity a minus b. So z squared minus 100 equals z plus 10, since 10 is the square root of 100, and z minus 10. And we set that equal to 0. Now we deal with these individually using this similar principles. So if you add 10, you get z equals 10. If you subtract 10 from 0, you get z equals negative 10. Okay, so that was a simpler example. Let's do one you're probably more familiar with if you're currently taking Algebra 1 or an equivalent course. So x squared minus 2x minus 15 equals 0. Pause the video if you want to solve this by yourself. Okay, so in order to solve this we must find out what two numbers multiply to this and add to this. Now, or you can just put it minus 15, and we will substitute two values in for substitute two factors in for here. So the two values that multiply to negative 15 and add to negative 2 are negative 5x and then positive 3x. And we can do a bit of factor by grouping. Factoring by grouping means we take one term out from each of these expressions and then add them separately. So we can take an x out here and take an x, get x minus 5, and then take a positive 3 out of here, get an x minus 5 as well. Set this equal to 0, and we can group these two together since they both have an x minus 5 attached to them. So we have an x plus 3, x minus 5, 0. And similarly, we can just solve for x in each equation. subtract 3 from both sides, we get x equals -3, and then x equals 5 from adding 5 to both sides. So yeah, let's go for a bit more complicated problem. 3x squared, sorry with that x looks weird, minus 25x plus 28 equals 0. Now pause the video if you want to solve by yourself. If not, then continue. Let's continue. Okay, so in order to solve this, the first step is to move the 3 from is to divide this fact by 3 and then multiply this by 3. Okay, I will show it'll make our math so much easier, and it works out quite well. So now we need to figure out which numbers add to multiply to 84 and add to -25. Now since they add to a negative and their sum is a positive, we can assume these are both negative numbers. So we can go 1. So we can do this by analysis. Have 1 and 84, or which sums to 85, 2 and 42, which sum to 44, 3 and 28, which sum to 31, 4 and 21, which sum to 25. Bingo. So we know it's -4 and -21. So now we get these factors back into the original equation. And so we have -4x plus 21x, and we do a similar factor by grouping. Here we could do x times 3x minus 4 plus 7. 3, not plus. My apologies. Yes, sometimes your resident. Yes, sometimes even smart people make mistakes. You just got to be able to bounce back from them. And then now you have x minus 7 and 3x minus 4 equals 0. So now we can solve for each of these. So x equals 7, and then so for this one specifically, we add 4 to both sides. We multiply both sides by 3, so we get x equals 4/3. Yeah, factoring can get confusing, but it's definitely possible. Okay, now it's time to move on. So 12x squared equals 24x. Solving for x. Now solve for this one on your own, and I won't catch up with you. Okay, so it may be a bit tempting at first to divide x by both sides, but that would be missing solutions. So instead, we can factor like we did last time. in order to this, we put both. We subtract 24x, and then it's all set to 0. Then we factor. There's an x in both, so we can factor out an x. So we have 12x minus 24. That equals 0. So x can equal 0, and 12x minus 24 equals 0. Adding 24 to both sides and divided by 12, we get x equals 2. Don't be tempted. Okay, so another method you'll learn to use to solve quadratic equations is instead of factoring, using the quadratic formula. This is for situations where it's impossible, or or rather just unpleasant to factor. So try using the quadratic formula to solve this. Okay, let's move on to the solution. So the quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. My Algebra 1 teacher got this stuck in my head. But anyways, that's how you get an x value. So now we have plug it in. But firstly, we have to solve this. Solve for 0. X plus 13x plus 6 0 equals negative 13 plus or minus square root of 13 squared minus 4 times 6 all over 2 times 6. Negative 13 plus minus 169 144 all over 12. And this turns out to be 25, and the square root of 25 is just 5. Plus or minus 5 over 12. So so x can equal negative 13 plus 5 over 12, or negative 8 over 12, or that would be negative 2/3, or negative 13 minus 5, or negative 18 over 12. And that would be 3/2. So you can't always use the quadratic. You can't always use factoring to solve for quadratic equation, but you have to use what is the method but if you have to be able to memorize the formula. Okay, so Cameron, I hope this helps. If this does, then please let me know. If this doesn't, then please explain what you're still confused on, and I will make a short separate video. And to everyone watching, feel free to use the request form in the description to request another topic for me to cover. Thank you for watching, and I will see you for the next video. Bye.